So my name's Lauren Solomon. I'm a fashion practitioner, researcher and activist, and I've just completed a doctorate of creative industries at QUT. So when I was working in industry, I worked in the fashion industry for a number of years, and I guess I started asking questions about practices, and I really noticed a huge gap between the Western world that I lived in, the first world, and where our products and garments and everything patterns were coming from. And I sort of started asking questions and digging a bit into this, and didn't get very anywhere. No one really wanted to talk about it, and I guess it's something that really triggered something in me to find more about it. So I started questioning industry practices, and then from there I ended up working in social enterprise for a while, so looking at fashion from a different perspective. But I think even then I was looking at these great examples and thinking, there's a mass market out there, and there's this huge industry, and although the social stuff was really great, but I was thinking, well, what's going on in that industry and how can I find out more? So I again started looking, asking questions and thinking, I actually need to do a lot more research about this before I can, do what I want to do. Yeah. Cambodia is a massive site for mass manufacture garment production. I'd heard about it and read a bit about it with a lot of the other countries like Bangladesh and China. And I was actually really early days before I even started with Centre Contact in Cambodia. And he got in touch with QUT and said, there's this massive problem in the fashion industry. Is anyone looking at this? And I just on a whim contacted him and said, this is really interesting, and started looking at it. And the more I learnt, the more I was interested and realised that there were just massive problems over there. And then in 2015, I went over there and conducted some field work and became really immersed in the industry and met the people. And when I met the workers, it kind of clicked for me because I was like, this is where I need to be. This is where the problems are. And from there, it's turned into a bit of a passion, I guess, from there. So, there's over 700,000 workers in the industry over there, so producing for all the big corporations. So it's a massive industry. It makes up about 80% of their exports as well. So it has a huge economical impact, yet you've got instances where a couple of years ago there was a big protest and the government fired and killed a couple of workers. So for me, it was really like, I need to do this, and it felt like I could probably try to make a bit of a difference there. Human-centered design, it's become a big part of my process. I had always been, I guess, quite human-centered in my approach and what I do. I'm really interested in meeting people and seeing things. So when I started reading about it, it started making sense that I would use it. It's definitely been a big part, conducting the field work and really becoming immersed in what's happening. I feel like for me, that was one of the most important things that I did, identifying the needs of the workers and the community that I was working with and building a project around that, rather than me coming with all my preconceived ideas about what they needed. So it's been a massive part. I also used community development as well. So lots of principles there that kind of cross with human-centered design as well. I guess when I set out, I was trying to think of a way that I could intervene in the industry, a small way. So setting up this training program was kind of my way to chip away at that. So my logical goal behind it was that we would train trade union leaders in critical thinking and problem solving, so that they had more of a better capacity to solve some of the issues that they were facing with, and that they could then teach the other people around them and to use it to kind of protect the workers as well. And I guess my goal with that was really to instill confidence in them and to think, hey, I can do something about this, and sort of change the way that they think about things as well. So they have really, really difficult tasks. The problems they're dealing with are really complex, they're multi-layered, they include things like poverty, and they're really complex, yet most of the trade union leaders have barely gone to primary school, so it's a huge burden of them, and they often feel quite alone and isolated. So for me, this was an opportunity to bring them together and to work on these skills in a really, sort of positive environment, so that they could go out and apply them in the workplace. So the key findings, I guess, firstly, before I get to the actual key findings on paper, the key findings for me as a person going through this, it was really amazing because I actually got to see how it worked, and it was really inspiring as a researcher and a practitioner, because at first, honestly, this was a really experimental training program that I put together, so I didn't know how it was going to go. And each day, the participants blew us away. They were so enthusiastic to learn. We used a lot of visual communication, which they'd never sort of seen or interacted with before. They picked up on it really quickly, so they were really engaged, and each day we saw them improve and change and reflect, and group work had never been done before, and then they got really good at it. So it was really inspiring, and for me to see that. The actual findings were also really exciting. So we interviewed workers that participated in the program afterwards, and they did say to us before, when someone came with me with a problem, it was all kind of confused in my head and I didn't really know what to do, and now I know some sort of straightforward steps to follow so that I can try to work through that. And one of the key things they said was that they could possibly solve problems without striking, which was a phenomenal finding, because the industry is so volatile and sometimes violent. So if they can solve things in peaceful ways, that's a great outcome for the industry as well. The other one was really about activating agency and giving the workers agency. So I'd done a lot of reading before I left, and I'd sifted through a lot of corporate social responsibility websites and reports, and I guess what I felt was always left out was the voice of the workers, or the fact that the workers are people and could contribute to change. It was all about statistics from a company's perspective, and on the ground it was to do with the factories. But what I wanted to do was instill these skills in the workers so they could actually, empower themselves. So, and yeah, through that process, I did realise that we could give them agency to make change. So yeah, it was really, really exciting. I think I've been telling people in a number of ways. So yeah, firstly, I wrote a thesis with all my findings in it. I've also written a publication that accompanies that called How to Be a Fashion Activist. So that's partly a guide, partly my story, and it uses the research. It's got the academic side in it, but what I want it to really be is to actually inspire other people that they can go out there and do it, because I am just a person and I did it. So it is really possible to go out there and do things and change systems. I was really lucky to bring a photo and documentary maker on board for my project. So I got a small grant here, and that was great because it was able to capture some of my findings as well and communicate that. So that's become a great marketing tool for me. Also, just being around the industry and networking and talking to people. So I've made some really good connections, and through that got some good press about it. So there's an organisation called Fashion Revolution that are like a global movement. So I was able to get an article. I was interviewed for an article on that, and then from that I've been contacted by the International Labour Organization in Myanmar. So it sort of does show that those things matter, to communicate your findings and your research like that. I guess just also capturing the outcomes and the data, because when you're doing something like I did, it's so hard at sometimes, because I was the researcher and the facilitator and running everything on the ground. You know, I was the one ringing the catering company to make sure lunch was there, and also, you know, doing all the exercises. So I really did have limited time to do interviews, but I did make sure that I did them. So at the end, I interviewed workers, and then 4 months later, I actually did some more. So what I wanted to do there was really capture how they use the training program in their everyday lives and in their workplace. And I feel like that's been really valuable, because it's really fed into the narrative of what worked and what we could take forward. And I've been able to tell people, this is what I found out, and these are the findings, and this is really exciting, and we can use this to move forward. I think my first thing is to travel, really, and to pick somewhere that really inspires you and is interesting, because I feel like once you get there, you learn so much, and connecting with the people and understanding what they need and making it about that, again, rather than your own ideas, because it is quite tricky. And I think a lot of people that are working in this field are obviously very passionate about making change, but it's really important that we know what change is appropriate and actually needed and actually, can work. So I think that's really important. The other thing is, I guess, scope. Scope's a massive one. So you tend to go out with these grand ideas, just starting small and testing it. So I was able to run my project on a quite a small budget, from a couple of small grants that I was able to get, and it is possible to do that. So I guess, just coming up with something that's viable and tangible, and then you can show that this has impact and then has scale. So I think that's really important.